Salut à toutes et tous, c'est Yacine et bienvenue dans la tête d'un CEO, le podcast qui vous inspire à entreprendre. Je vous propose tous les lundis une conversation authentique avec des entrepreneurs et des figures hyper inspirantes pour, je l'espère, vous permettre à votre tour de réaliser tous vos projets et impacter notre société positivement. N'hésitez pas à vous abonner au podcast et nous dire ce que vous en pensez en commentaire. Sans plus attendre, je vous souhaite un excellent épisode. Hi everyone, I'm Yacine and welcome inside a CEO's Mind, the inspiring podcast to guide you toward entrepreneurship. I will propose for the next hour an authentic conversation with top-notch talents and entrepreneurs that have succeeded in their life. Please do not hesitate to support us by subscribing to the podcast, obviously, but also leaving some comments and a 5-star rating. Now, fasten your seatbelts, because this podcast is about to start. Enjoy. Hello everyone, this is Yacine and welcome to this new episode. So today I'm really happy to welcome Lubomila, and we're gonna go and try to get into your head. And I would like also to thank France Digitale, because today is the FD Day, so France Digitale Day, for their 10th anniversary. So sorry a bit about the background noise, but we have to make it happen. So I'm very happy to be with you, Lubomila. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you so much for having me, and also thanks to France Digitale for hosting us in this phenomenal venue that
Can you see what we're seeing at the moment?
It's like a circus here.
Exactly, it's like a few horses and yeah. Can you present yourself like very shortly so people understand what are we going to talk about for the next 45-50 minutes?
I think it's really difficult when you're speaking about your own company or in the context of your own company to not present yourself immediately as the CEO and founder of something that does something. But for the context of people that maybe are considering the industry in which I work, I would start from how I got into this. I'm a finance professional. I was in investment banking, then in VC, then in fintech. And in 2016, I found myself on a beach in Morocco where instead of surfing...
I'm Moroccan.
Oh, amazing.
Were you in Dakhla, I think?
No, I was next to Agadir.
Yeah, in the south. Oh, maybe they have like several spots. I don't surf.
I went there and essentially, sadly, was exposed on Banana Beach to a lot of pollution already on the day one. And what this meant for me was kind of, at least to question myself. I started collecting the trash on the moment when I saw it, but then it kind of persisted being there for the whole week. And when I came back to London, I really wanted to learn a little bit more about the issue. What was the cause of kind of pollution? Was it mainly humans that were causing climate change that was obviously being intensified by pollution? And that got me into the topic. And what I am is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Plan A, where we support corporates and fast-scaling startups to decarbonize and align to policy. We have a software as a service platform where you assess all your data, you understand where you're standing on your environmental, social, governance perspective, and then you automatically get a prescription on how you can improve and how you can comply.
So that's a small challenge.
We don't like to keep it simple.
Yeah, I can see that. It's quite funny because you come from a financial background, and I was just wondering, like, how did you get the idea, to sit on the other side of the table and become an entrepreneur? Like, it's quite different jobs. So, yeah, what made you make this first move?
There was a big deliberation for close to a year while I was gathering all the knowledge about climate change, while I was diving deep into the topics on what can I do. And I first built a data model that was looking into the worst performing environmental indicators. But then after that, I started looking into how to develop a perspective on the psyche of the causing entity. And that, from all the research that I did, was businesses. Because they were mainly the ones that were building companies and products and solutions that had some negative impact on the planet. And I interviewed 300 people to understand how they were thinking. And ultimately, at some point, it became so heavy. I just knew way too much. So I essentially decided to quit my job. And
Couldn't close your eyes on that.
no, I couldn't. And it was just devastating reading about all of the destruction of our planet, but also looking into how people were thinking. They wanted to engage, but they didn't know how to. And then also kind of looking into the data, which was clearly showing that there was a lot of work that could be done. 1 year down the line, I basically quit my job. And
So that took you 1 year, right?
yeah, I wanted to be science and data driven in my approach. I think it's really scary to think that one can build companies within this field without diving into all of these components, because this is not a simple data challenge. It's really a challenge, a matter of understanding all the science, all the cause and effects, all the different building blocks that are connected to one another. So with this in mind, I had to understand better in order to be able to build something that was solid.
Okay, very clear. But just to deep dive a little bit about the pain identification. So basically, you said that you interviewed more than 300 companies. What was happening in your head at that time? Like, were you already, focused on a business solution that you wanted to develop, or was it just out of personal curiosity?
I think when I was interviewing the people, the main concern that I had was how committed were people in using their day-to-day jobs to find solutions for sustainability, climate change. And the usual answer that I would get was CSR related. So there's a department in my company that does that. There would be a lot of people from finance or a consulting industry that would say that it's not their responsibility. And there was clearly a lot of gaps in the knowledge. So people didn't understand what was really climate change. And
You thought it was just a constraint for them, like especially in the financial industry, that they had to operate with it?
actually, I don't even think they saw it as a constraint. It was more like, oh, all these NGOs can do some stuff about it. But then
Also, they just didn't really care. Like,
there was no awareness. I don't think that they wouldn't have cared if they knew about the concepts and the problem. They were just not aware of the magnitude of the issue.
okay, very clear. It took you 1 year to leave your job and to start the company. Just trying to understand, so I often talk about the imposter syndrome. So yeah, first question, did you have it? And also, like, why 1 year? Did you try for this 1 year to maybe bear as maximum the risk that you were taking?
Not really, because I was way too engaged with the topic, and also I felt at the end of my investigation that there was no solutions that were coming out on the market. And what this meant for me was that I had to take a chance on myself. I'm someone that is really heart driven. I'm really passionate about what I do, and
Oh yeah, I can tell by the way you talk about it.
yeah, and I find it to be a responsibility. Once you develop the knowledge, you have no chance but really to take a step. And that doesn't mean you're not going to fail. I mean, we've pivoted twice since the beginning of the company, but that also doesn't mean that you cannot succeed. And even if you don't, at least you've pushed the whole industry down the line. So whatever the outcome is, you've pushed everyone to be a lot more open-minded about the problem.
Got it, and very clear. We can tell that it was a passion, that it was in your guts. You also mentioned pivots. Just trying to understand, so Plan A has pivoted several times. What do you think it takes a founder to make such a move?
Plan A has lived 3 lives, I would say, since 2017. The first thing we developed was an algorithm that predicts where and how climate change will hit the hardest. This algorithm was allowing us to use the power of data, more than 300,000 data points related to oceans, forests, wildlife, sustainable living, sustainable energy and waste management, to give an overview of business challenges associated to supply chains and climate risk. While working on that, we quickly learned that businesses had no budgets for climate risk. They had budgets for risk, but not in particular clarity on how they can prepare for the next 20 to 30 years.
So at the time, there were no governmental rules regarding carbon emissions?
Climate risk is different than carbon emissions. So climate risk is really the long-term impacts that maybe your supply chain will suffer. The infrastructure destruction, maybe the loss of certain assets. And for carbon accounting, for carbon emissions, this is a status quo analysis, which is like where you're standing today with your emissions. Legislation on climate risk was barely visible across the board, and there was little awareness on a corporate level, and therefore little budgets, because normally you would assume that there would be a dedicated, designated amount of money per year for these kinds of issues. We couldn't find a lot of stakeholders that would be engaged with this in companies. So at that point we pivoted, we decided to build an investment platform where companies and individuals could support environmental projects that would be using the data and the assessments from the algorithm, allow them to understand how their geography or their community or places that they cared about were going to be impacted by climate change, and doing this through a lot of science and education. Again, it was evident that there was people that wanted to give money to projects like that, but they also wanted to understand how they can change, which is why in 2018 we built our software, which at this point of time supports corporates and fast-scaling businesses like Sorare, BNP Paribas, Chloe, the fashion company, Maersk, and I can continue listing. We have thousands of them now, to essentially understand where they're standing, get automatically a prescription on how they can improve, and then finally get an assessment of what policies they need to comply to and automate the reporting around that.
I think you mentioned it in the first, actually in both pivots. I'd like to talk about the awareness. How did you show them that it was an important subject, and obviously you had to bring value, so money. Obviously, I guess the recent years has shown us how important it is. But yeah, I also think that recently you mentioned, or Sorare mentioned, that they were working with you and they will bring, so Sorare is one of the greatest licorne in Paris, and that they will reach the break-even next year.
We're incredibly happy to work with Sorare, and we think it's really big revolution for the whole Web3 industry, because the software module that we developed really allows for all sorts of blockchain companies to see how they can decarbonize, and that's quite big because the energy consumption, a resource that we don't have a lot of at the moment, or at least the cost of it is really high, needs to become sustainable as fast as possible. On a more fundamental level, in terms of the steps that we have taken to get companies on board, there's been an incredible focus since the beginning on education. The first 2 years of Plan A's existence, we really spent time on organizing events, creating awareness, explaining what is corporate sustainability, business sustainability, kicking off some initiatives in companies like Eventbrite, Airbus, and others, Delivery Hero, just to give the employees also the ammunition to be able to speak about sustainability in an informed and science-driven manner. And the last few years, of course, we've been supported by the regulatory framework that really pushed alignment across the stakeholders, and also alignment in the thinking of what steps need to be taken by businesses once this assessment has been done.
You mentioned companies that you did several events with them, so I think you mentioned Airbus. I was wondering, how were you able to convince them, and do you think that all of those players share the same values as you, or maybe sometimes they were just taking advantage of your mission?
We're really careful of who we align our name with, because we want to make sure that any company we get on board is aligned to the idea that they need to take action, decarbonize, improve,
so it's
and
not just about
it's part of
branding.
the terms and conditions even of the engagements that we have with them. So from that concern side, I don't think there's anyone, and you can see on our website as we're really transparent about these things, who you can name and claim is just using our name for their own purposes. We've had to reject a lot of companies that come from industries where we felt there was no particular excitement to take action, but they mostly wanted to have some stamp of approval that they're carbon neutral or they've compensated their emissions and so on. We don't do that. How do we convince companies to work with us? We're lucky like that to have infinite amount of demand. I'm saying this with a lot of humbleness because we're really proud of what we've been able to build. Usually in the beginning of a company, there's maybe the first case studies that can help you get the next case studies. We're now at the stage where we have thousands of companies which we can speak about, and we can speak at some cases for 20% reduction on a yearly basis. We have some other clients that have been able to onboard all of their portfolio companies like VCs, private equities. We also have companies that have onboarded all of their suppliers on our product. So we've gone through quite a few cycles of development that have gotten us to where we are, and that I think helps us to have so much confidence embedded in the way companies think about us.
Just a little question about how you get your clients. So let's say we talk about lead generation. How is it made? Is it fully inbound? Do you do a word of mouth? Because I believe that the cause that you are defending, I don't see anyone that would oppose to that. So it's either they are aware and they see the value of it, or they as you say, they close their eyes on purpose. So yeah, how do you get your clients?
We get a lot of word of mouth. Like Bliss is an example where their whole portfolio more or less is working with us, and that came because they've been speaking really highly about the results that we've been able to achieve with Bliss. Therefore, their portfolio has been excited to work with us. We of course have a sales team, so there's inbound, there's outbound, but we definitely don't suffer from anything but shortage of excitement for companies to work with us.
Excellent. I think you mentioned that you managed to reduce by 20% the yearly carbon emissions of some of your clients. My question is as follows: could you give us few examples, few basic use cases or complex use cases that you have with your clients, please?
I can give multitude of examples. The first one that is more template of a tech company is where you need to support these businesses on sourcing their energy for their servers and hosting from a SaaS company that is highly reliant on servers and hosting as the main element of their business. In this case, you need to get access to green energy, you have to have efficient servers and hosting, and that is actually quite wasteful, not only on the energy consumption side, but also water consumption. You also need to engage your employees on certain travel policies because that plays a part as well. And last but definitely not least, you need to get your suppliers intact. So if you're a company that is having offices and then you have also certain parts of your different elements for the offices being supplied by, water company, food company, companies that deliver merch, and all of these people have a big chunk of their contribution towards your scope 3, category 1. So these are the choices, the mindful choices that you need to make. So these categories are the main, usually, ones to be seen. If I take a more complex example, we work with automotive companies like BMW, and in their case, there's so many different companies within the group itself. We have 6 different contracts with 6 different entities within BMW, and all of them are aligned to the same target that the group has, but have to apply different strategies. So for their fleet manager company called Alphabet, it was about empowering the clients because they're the ones that create the most amount of emissions. Because as a fleet management company user, you are essentially buying off fleets from BMW of thousands of cars, and these cars are consumed through the fuel that they use, through the way the cars are being driven. For this purpose, we developed a fleet management solution that is being used by actually a lot of automotive companies and fleet managers across Europe, where essentially you can do an assessment. What are the actions that the client needs to take? and then they get to be prioritized, tracked over time, and then they get to be reported on.
Actually, I'm very curious about that last example. Could you tell us a little bit about that fleet management solution and how do you manage to help them decrease their impact?
Actually, reckless drivers are quite of an emission creating element. Also, the way fuel is consumed in the most optimal way is certain features within the cars need to be tweaked. And last but definitely most important is the fact that you also need to start selecting a fleet that becomes more focused on the electric or hydrogen vehicles, and that can happen gradually, but is part of also the decarbonization suggestions that the product gives.
Okay, thanks Lubomila, very clear. It's been already 20 minutes. We've been talking about Plan A, and I would love to also address the topics of fundraising and also the place of women in tech and entrepreneurship. But before that, as I have like few questions about Plan A, could you in a way tell us give us few figures about like what you have achieved so far? How many clients do you have? How many employees do you have? How much funds did you raise? Just so we understand what has been the journey so far.
So we're 120 people based across Germany and Munich and Berlin, Paris in France, and also London in the UK. We have more than 1,000 clients from a lot of different industries, predominantly on the fast scaling, mid-size, private equities, VCs, other types of financial institutions, and then a lot of large corporates from all sorts of sectors: automotive, maritime, utility, fashion, and financial institutions and others. In terms of, I guess, the setup, well, I can mention what has been announced. I cannot go beyond that.
Thank you anyways.
We have financial support from VCs like Softbank, HV Capital, Demeter in France, and Keen in London.
Oh, what was the amount that you have announced that you have fundraised?
We've raised around 20 million so far.
Okay, 20 million. Still have one last question. If you look at the future, what are the next steps for Plan A? Like, where do you want to bring this company to?
So I would only say mark your calendars for November. We're going to be making around 10 different announcements. So
oh, wow. Big announcements. So I think we should get aligned on when we will publish this podcast. Hopefully we are talking to you, audience, and we are in November with great announcements. Going further, I just wanted to know about the fundraising process. How was it like to fundraise with VCs, for a climate tech company? Was it hard? Were they already aware, and did they know at the time that it would be, such an important topic?
I always feel like we've paved the way for all the climate tech community, because in 2016 there's not been many, neither companies nor value propositions associated to what we're doing at the moment. And I'm really happy that we went through the process of educating a lot of investors. I've been in so many calls where investors would not want to chat because they wanted to put money, or they were even considering at the get-go of the call to put money, but it was more because they wanted to understand what is this whole thing like climate tech, and why does it matter? Is it going to last for a long time? And we studiously spoke to each one of them to make sure that even if they don't put money into us, which we could really quickly understand from the first few words of the conversation, they at least would be pushing the message forward, because they would be listening to a party that is knowledgeable about the topic, that is speaking with conviction about the issue, and later on speaking with a lot of results about this. So hopefully this played a big part. I think I had a few systemic issues that I had to face in the beginning. Female founder, working on climate tech, based in Germany. All of these things.
Germany was bad to fundraise there?
If you're a female founder, 2016-17 was not a moment when funds were giving money to a female CEO. That was not the case.
So you mean female founder and yeah, climate tech, and basically in the US might have been easier.
I don't think so. It was no, not even, because it was the combination of climate tech and female founder, also first-time founder. A bunch of those things, I think, was what played a part. But I'm incredibly grateful because it made me and probably the team that is not actually left and people that are committed for many years now are really resilient. So not an issue at all.
How did you get that resilience from? Like, back in the time in 2016, how did you keep faith of, finding money and making sure that, believing that some people will capture the value that you are creating, and so they want to put money into that project?
The conviction came from the fact that I'm dealing with a problem that is bigger than me, my life, my existence. I think I've chosen to work on something that is so important that gives me the day-to-day confidence that I need to keep on pushing. It's not a useless tool that no one needs, or when there's a recession, people can immediately cut costs from. It is something that is solving a larger challenge, and that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps the whole team going. We're on a big mission, and the reason why businesses trust us is because we're doing this following the science way. We're doing this with the focus on action, and we also do it with a lot of know-how, because we've gone through a lot of cycles of helping companies improve.
Okay. I still feel that you take that for granted, but I believe that back in 2016 we would have never had as many startups in this kind of events that are in climate tech.
Not at all. I can put a bet on that there was probably one company or two companies here that were talking about some probably energy optimization or something that was related to renewables, but nothing to do with climate tech in the sense that we think about it now.
Yeah, because I'm thinking out loud, but I feel that in 2016, climate companies were really tackling. I would talk about EVs, so electric vehicles. We can mention Waymo from Google, but a lot of other manufacturers were already tackling this problem. Why was it only not climate tech overall, but just electric vehicles? How do you think in this ecosystem we had a huge turn regarding climate tech?
I think we've always been obsessed with gadgets. We've always loved being at the forefront of technology, innovation, and EVs have seemed like a cute invention that combines sustainability and also people's obsession with automotive industry. So this definitely had some impact. If you ask me why were people not aware about climate change, it's because the way the topic has been discussed historically has been with a lot of focus on complex terms and scientific alignment, which should not be forgotten at all today, but it's certainly one that needs to be broad in layman terms so that people understand it better and understand what this means as an implication to their own life, which I think now at least a little bit better at. It's a progress, it's a process. We need to have an understanding on a global and kind of pan-societal level of why this problem is going to impact us all. I think we're getting there definitely on the European continent. And then action starts infiltrating the different stakeholder groups, aligning the activities to what the particular stakeholders need to do. But in 2016, it was Wild Wild West. It was nothing to do with this reality.
Yeah, that was 6 years ago. So in a way, I'm happy to say that it was already 6 years ago and we've come a long way, but we're probably not moving as fast as we would like it. As I have another question, would you name maybe an industry that is not still as much focused as we would like it to be on the climate tech like on climate change. Sorry. So yeah, if you have any industry that should take like this turn and is still not as aware as it should be.
I think all industries are taking their chances on carbon accounting, sustainability measures. It's just that certain players within certain industries are not taking action. I wouldn't single out a particular industry because regulation is starting to now penetrate all of the different activities of different industries. I would definitely confirm that there's a big group of companies that prefer to delay until the last minute the actions that they would take, or focus only on the reporting bit. And that is when you focus only on preparing the annual reports, on the quarterly reports, to collect data, but not to respond to what the data is telling you.
And are there like specific industries, you know?
It's in every single industry. It's not a particular industry. Yeah, it's the awareness within the certain industry. So in every industry, you have laggards, you have people that are innovators, pioneers. We can proudly say that we work with those.
Excellent, thanks. I also have like a question. We often talk in this podcast about the notion of giving back. So I was just wondering, you know, what does it mean to you? How do you give back? Do you feel that, you know, back in 2016, the giving back, you know, to community, to other founders, to other users, this has evolved, and I know that you have participated to the Female Founder Challenge in Vivatech last year. You are part also of the Obama's Foundation. So yeah, I'd love to have your views on that and your opinion, if you could share it with us.
Throughout my journey, I've had fantastic opportunities to support a lot of different communities, but also to be supported. The Obama Leaders Program selects on an annual basis 30 people that are going through an intense leadership course and even meet President Obama to learn how to be better leaders. So that was me on the receiving side of someone giving back.
Okay.
In terms of the programs that I've supported as a mentor, I have set up the NGO called Green Tech Alliance, where we support more than 2,000 startups on accessing capital, visibility, and expertise. We set this up in the beginning of COVID with the concern that sustainability was going to become secondary, and we wanted to make sure that green tech companies have access to the necessary visibility and support without having to pay a single penny, as we had to in the beginning, because in the beginning we had to explain ourselves a lot. And we think that no company should have to explain themselves if they're fighting climate change and they're finding the angle to make our economy more sustainable. I support a lot of female founders. I'm part of a few programs for that, like FemGems, Gold Up, which doesn't exist anymore, but I was from the family. I also have been supporting Techstars in Paris for their sustainability program, and have been working on a one-on-one basis with people in my team, but also with people that are outside. This is how I spend my free time, which is kind of non-existent, but I always make time for people.
Okay, so we understood. You're taking time for them. I think we understood about the climate tech. I'd love to talk about a bit about the place of women in entrepreneurship. Things are moving forward, but I feel that numbers are still too low. So what can we do to change that? What is your mission? Like, what do you want? Can you help on that?
For the context of the listeners, it's important to mention that last year was the first time in 5 years that we've had a decline in funding for female founders in Europe, from 1.3% to 0.9%, which is devastating given the fact that there's a lot of female founders, a lot more female founder programs, a lot of female founders that just kick off their journey now. So there's no logic in this number. And it's not because female founders declined in numbers during COVID, not at all. The support that is needed is for us to stop talking about female founders as female founders, but rather start talking about founders as founders. A female founder, a male founder is equally capable of building a company that will be successful. It's just that some sort of perception maybe still as a residue there from some old times when there was these boys clubs and there was the focus on women staying at home and bringing up children, and men bringing the money and creating the financial stability. I think this is an old way of thinking. It's a sad way of thinking. Unfortunately, it still exists, but it is one that needs to be eradicated. Some practical ways in which this can happen is that every single professional that has some sort of experience should find angles to support female founders. Any single person. You don't need to have 20 years of experience. Even if it's half an hour a month, just sitting down with someone and giving them advice or listening to their challenges, it already pushes the agenda forward. Another element which is important when it comes to the funding is having quotas. In the past, I used to be against quotas because I felt they were discriminatory, but now it has gotten so dire, the situation, that it feels like we actually need to set some numbers. And these two measures are really tangible and they can help a lot. And the final one that is so important is to really get female representation at events that are normally not usually familiar with a female look, female representation.
All right, so diversity understood, much important. I'm taking the opportunity because I have like a personal question. So regarding my podcast, like I feel there is this circle where we are having more and more female founders, and you talked about quotas. I'm just wondering, should I apply this biased quota and, through the podcast, giving more and more, voice and light to female founders so that we can have also more female founders to emerge in the coming years? What's your views on that? Like, since it's a biased quota, but I know some are, pros and other cons, so like against it. So, what's your views on that?
I think diversity is only possible and realizable if all of us take, with the work that we do, the steps to continuously demonstrate that we live in a diverse world, but this world is not represented properly in media, in the funding that we were just discussing, in team structures in certain industries, and any chance that you can take to support these minorities that probably I would have to count myself towards, even though I don't think in this way, should be taken. What I find most exciting in life is when things are constantly provocative and changing and moving. And for someone that is a podcast host with you that clearly has a vision to get into the mind of CEOs, it might be interesting to also pick up someone that maybe is totally outside of the conference types that you visit and go in the middle of a small city where there is a CEO of a small startup, but that's someone that you don't see either on the stages of France Digitale or you don't see them at the big conferences, events, or any kinds of similar engagements. Because the reality is when we constantly reconfirm ourselves that this is how the world looks, we also think of the same solutions for when we have problems that we need to solve. So diversity, showing it with anything that you do, I think is really important mission to be on.
Agree 300%, definitely. I'd love to talk a bit about so all the posts that you do on LinkedIn, which I feel is not even about just plan A, but bringing visibility to underrepresented founders also, and different kind of industries, definitely climate tech. I also have a question. Do you feel like this is our responsibility as a media, but as other what we commonly call today influencers, but to put light on these underrepresented classes of entrepreneurs, and not just entrepreneurs actually. Very broad question, but what are your your views on that? I'd love to have your opinion.
So there's a few questions to depict in what you mentioned, probably starting with the first one about LinkedIn. I'm really active on LinkedIn, and I have a lot of overview of the value that is being created there, but also of how celebratory the platform is. People are always talking about like, this I did today and I'm now more successful. I use it as an information platform because I'm connected to a lot of people that are within the climate space. So I learn from them. It's my community, it's my base, it's the place where I find myself at ease in a conversation about what we're working on. I think there we forget the fact that by constantly celebrating success or only showing a polished version of ourselves, we often end up probably contributing to the mental health issues of someone else, because the success that maybe you have today, that is the only thing you communicate, and the consistency that people see only with that makes you feel good. But then for anyone else that is listening, it might feel like, okay, but what have I done? I balance my own content with a lot of information on climate. My main focus on the platform is to educate people, and I spend a lot of time on making sure that I engage in a conversation, but also not a single message is not unanswered. There's a lot of people that message me with their concerns about climate, people that also live where climate is happening, places like Pakistan even now. And that is also a fuel for pushing further the agenda. When it comes to media, I think there's an attempt to be a lot more diverse. I think there's also been some legislation that passed in the UK and also in the EU that kind of makes things a little bit better. However, I still think that a lot of the usual business spheres, especially if you go into some more corporate, like large entities, women are still not fully and well represented. And that probably is a matter of a generational shift that still needs to happen.
And this podcast is already coming to an end. So I still have like one last question before we shoot like all these, quick questions that will be on video on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. So I invite all of our audience to subscribe. But yeah, my last question is this one. We have seen like many new laws, especially in Europe, regarding like carbon emissions. And I'm just wondering, do you feel that these laws plays a crucial role in bringing leads to Plan A? So, and awareness, obviously.
We already see this. We have a lot of clients that come to us because they need to be compliant. The good thing that we do and what we get excited by is to push them to go a step further. Compliance is an important element. It really aligns the stakeholders and also the KPI assessment, and most likely pushes different stakeholders within the organization to think in the same manner, but it does not automatically mean that the company is going to take a step. We act as this lever and this catalyst that supports these organizations to go a step further.
Awareness again and again. Got it. Thank you very much, Lubomila, for those questions. And now it's the last questions. So my first question is as follows. Could you describe for us in one or a few words what does entrepreneurship means to you?
Commitment, energy, and constant roller coaster.
And could you tell us why?
You cannot achieve anything when you commit to building a company if you really don't have a level of engagement with your passion, your topic, because there's going to be a lot of obstacles, and that means you need to be able to overcome them by having this resilient mindset, this energetic, committed vision. It's constant roller coaster because you cannot predict how the world is going to respond to your idea. You need to be adaptive, and you need to expect that there's going to be a lot of ups and downs.
So get ready, everyone. Second question. If you had the opportunity to choose a board member, alive, dead, fictive, or real, who would that be and why?
I'm lucky to be able to speak in presence because 2 months ago, Plan A set up a scientific board which is advising our existing board on how to think about the vision and the future of the company. We have people that are senior advisors of Bank of England, high-level champions of COP26, chairman of COP27, CEO of Climate Cake, one of the most prominent scientists on climate change from around the world, and also one of the biggest exponential thinkers related to data and climate. So I'll pick them any day.
So pretty well surrounded, as I can see. This is my last question, but the most important one. If you could address to our audience, so looking at the camera, people looking to get into entrepreneurship, what would be the most underrated advice that you would like to address to them?
Trust your guts. I think we're, of course, really driven by data, and we should be driven by data, but also if you feel like someone you want to hire doesn't feel right, or if you feel like someone that is about to become a client is misaligned with your values, but maybe you cannot find the data that proves that, follow your intuition, because quite often you'll find out that the data is proving how you've been feeling.
All right, and I think and I hope that everyone has listened very carefully to this golden advice. Thank you so much, Lubomila, for this almost hour. Did you have a good time?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really happy.
Thank you so much again, Lubomila, for this whole podcast. Thanks to everyone that have listened to us. I wish you a pleasant day, and see you probably anytime soon for a new episode in English. Bye, everyone. And this is the end of this episode. Thank you all for listening. If you have enjoyed, please do not hesitate to subscribe, to leave comments, and obviously a 5-star rating. I will come up very soon with a new episode in English, so stay tuned. Bye.